Amelia's world is turned upside down when she receives a phone call from her husband, Tyler, announcing that he is divorcing her and has sold their apartment without her consent. His words are cold, almost triumphant, as he tells her that he and Nicole, the woman he's been seeing, need the money to start a life together. Amelia's shock quickly turns into a quiet anger, but her calm response hides the secret she's been holding for months. The deed to the apartment had been in her name alone for months, long before Tyler made his decision to sell it. She had transferred the deed after refinancing, and Tyler had signed the paperwork without question. This oversight would be his downfall. Tyler's smugness blinds him to the fact that he cannot sell something he doesn't own. He thinks he's outsmarted her, but Amelia is determined not to let him get away with it. After consulting with her lawyer, Chloe, she begins the legal process to reverse the sale, and soon the buyer is notified that the sale is invalid. Tyler's arrogance crumbles as he realizes that his actions are about to have serious consequences. Amelia's response to this betrayal is not one of despair but of resolve. She is ready to fight back, not just for the apartment but for her life. Tyler's betrayal has pushed her to reclaim control, and in doing so, she realizes her own strength. What Tyler never understood is that she has always been the one in control, even if she didn't know it yet. Amelia's life takes a drastic turn when her husband, Tyler, coldly informs her over the phone that he's divorcing her and has sold their apartment, expecting her to figure out where to live. His voice carries a tone of smug triumph as he tells her that he and Nicole, the woman he's been seeing, will use the money to start their new life together. Though the betrayal hits Amelia hard, she refuses to let him see her weakness. As Tyler continues to brag about his plans with Nicole, Amelia remains calm, asking only one question: "You sold the apartment?" In that moment, she knows she has the upper hand. The apartment, which they had worked so hard to buy together, was legally hers alone. After refinancing earlier in the year, Amelia had made the decision to transfer the deed into her name. Tyler, assuming everything was fine, never bothered to read the paperwork he had signed. His carelessness would now come back to haunt him. What Tyler didn't realize was that he had no legal right to sell the apartment. Amelia had already been playing the long game. While he thought he had outsmarted her, she had already set herself up for a victory. She quickly contacted her lawyer, Chloe, who confirmed that Tyler's actions were both illegal and potentially fraudulent. Chloe reassured Amelia that the sale could be voided, and if Tyler had taken any money from the buyer, he could face serious legal consequences. As the legal process unfolded, Amelia's initial shock turned into a sense of determination and empowerment. She wasn't just going to fight for her home, she was going to fight back against everything Tyler had taken from her over the years: his manipulation, his arrogance, and his betrayal. When Tyler showed up at the apartment with Nicole, expecting to claim it as his own, Amelia calmly put him in his place. She laid out the truth: "This apartment is mine," and made it clear that there would be no place for him in her life anymore. As Tyler's world unraveled, Amelia stood firm, finally reclaiming the power and control she had unknowingly given away for years. The fight wasn't just for the apartment, it was for her freedom. Amelia's world was shattered the moment she received Tyler's cold and smug phone call announcing their divorce. For 6 years, she had believed in their partnership, in the life they'd built together until that moment. Tyler's betrayal hit her like a punch to the gut. Not only was he leaving her, but he had also sold their apartment without her knowledge or consent. His casual mention of Nicole, the woman he'd been seeing behind her back, stung, confirming her suspicions that there had been someone else all along. But amidst the hurt and anger, Amelia kept her composure. She didn't break down. Instead, she focused on the one detail Tyler overlooked: the apartment deed. Tyler, arrogant as ever, had signed the refinancing paperwork without paying attention to the fine details, and Amelia had taken the step of transferring the deed to her name months earlier. Tyler's thoughtless actions were now the key to his downfall. While the news of the sale initially left Amelia feeling stunned and powerless, her shock quickly turned into determination. Tyler had thought he could take everything from her: the apartment, their shared life, even her sense of self-worth. But Amelia wasn't going to let him walk away with that. She immediately contacted her lawyer and friend, Chloe, who confirmed that Tyler's sale was not only invalid but potentially fraudulent. If Tyler had already taken money from the buyer, he could be charged with fraud. This revelation brought a wave of satisfaction to Amelia. Tyler had underestimated her, and now it was time to set things right. Amelia focused all her energy on legal action, determined to fight back with quiet strength. Chloe quickly moved to notify the buyer, who was shocked to discover the sale was illegal and was willing to cooperate. Tyler, now realizing the gravity of his mistake, became increasingly desperate. He left frantic messages for Amelia, alternating between apologies and threats, but Amelia remained. The real turn. The days that followed were. As the divorce moved. Amelia's journey from betrayal to empowerment was a hard-fought one, but in the end, it was her quiet strength and resilience that triumphed. When Tyler's phone call shattered her sense of security and trust, she found herself blindsided by his sudden declaration of divorce and his smug announcement that he had sold their apartment. The apartment was meant to be a symbol of everything they had built together, and now, Tyler had taken it from her with no remorse. His casual mention of Nicole, the other woman, was the final straw, confirming her worst fears. But even as the pain of his betrayal hit her like a wave, Amelia did not let herself drown in despair. Instead, she turned to the one thing that Tyler had underestimated: the deed to the apartment. What Tyler had failed to notice was that during the refinancing process, Amelia had quietly had the deed transferred to her name alone. Tyler had never read the fine print, too sure of himself to check the details, and now that carelessness would be his undoing. While he thought he had won, Amelia was prepared to fight back with everything she had. Amelia's first call was to Chloe, her lawyer and longtime friend, who quickly reassured her that the sale Tyler had made was invalid. The buyer had been notified, and the fraudulent sale could potentially lead to criminal charges for Tyler. With the legal process set in motion, Amelia began to regain control of the situation. She didn't let Tyler's frantic attempts to manipulate her, whether through threats or apologies, derail her focus. Each step she took was measured, deliberate, and, above all, grounded in the knowledge that she had the upper hand. The confrontation that came later, when Tyler showed up with Nicole, was a turning point. Amelia stood her ground firmly, no longer intimidated by Tyler's attempts to reclaim the apartment he had no right to. She made it clear that the space, once shared between them, was hers alone now. As Tyler and Nicole stood there, bewildered and desperate, Amelia's calm authority left them both speechless. Tyler had thought he could just walk away and skate, but Amelia had one last piece of the puzzle: her unwavering resolve. The days that followed were filled with legal meetings, emotional healing, and the process of reclaiming what was rightfully hers. As Chloe worked on the divorce proceedings, Amelia began to rebuild her life piece by piece. The apartment, once a place filled with memories of her marriage, slowly transformed into a space that reflected her true self. With each new change, whether rearranging furniture or adding personal touches, Amelia found herself shedding the weight of her past. By the time Tyler signed the divorce papers, it was clear that Amelia had come out the victor. There was no grand reconciliation, no tearful apologies, just a clean break. Amelia had found her freedom, and she was ready to move forward. As she sat in her newly reclaimed apartment, looking out at the city skyline, she realized that this wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where she was in control, free from the chains of the past. She wasn't just surviving anymore. Amelia was thriving. Amelia's journey was one of painful betrayal, But it ultimately led her to a place of personal power and independence that she had never known. The moment Tyler's cold, triumphant voice told her he was divorcing her, Amelia was blindsided. He had sold their apartment, the home they had worked so hard for, and dismissed her entirely, casually introducing Nicole, the woman who had replaced her in his life. Tyler's words were like a slap to the face, but instead of breaking her, they ignited something in Amelia, a quiet, yet fierce determination. What Tyler didn't know was that Amelia had taken control long before that phone call. She had quietly ensured that the apartment deed was transferred to her name alone months earlier. Tyler, always confident and dismissive of her concerns, had never bothered to check the details. He signed papers without reading them, assuming everything would always go his way. Now, that carelessness was his downfall. While Tyler thought he had outsmarted her by selling the apartment, he had unknowingly set himself up for legal disaster. Amelia's first step was to contact Chloe, her lawyer and longtime friend, who swiftly reassured her that Tyler's actions were not only wrong but illegal. The sale was invalid, and if Tyler had taken any money from the buyer, he would be on the hook for fraud. Chloe helped Amelia reclaim control of the situation, ensuring that Tyler's sense of victory was short-lived. Amelia knew this fight was not just about winning the apartment back, it was about reclaiming her sense of self-worth and independence. The emotional toll was heavy, but Amelia refused to let it define her. While Tyler desperately tried to manipulate her with apologies and threats, she remained steady and resolute. Even when he arrived at the apartment with Nicole, expecting to stay there as if nothing had changed, Amelia stood firm. She calmly told Tyler that the apartment was hers, and he had no right to either the home or the money from the fraudulent sale. The confrontation was the final moment of her transformation. She no longer needed Tyler's approval, validation, or presence in her life. As the legal proceedings moved forward and Tyler's desperate attempts to manipulate her continued, Amelia focused on rebuilding her life. She rearranged the apartment, turning it into a space that reflected her personality and independence, free from Tyler's influence. By the time the divorce was finalized, it wasn't just the end of a marriage, it was the beginning of a new chapter. Amelia was no longer defined by her relationship with Tyler. She was free, stronger than she had ever been, and ready to embrace the future. Amelia's story is one of resilience, transformation, and empowerment, a journey from heartbreak to self-discovery. When she received the shocking news from Tyler that he was divorcing her and had sold their apartment, she felt as though the ground had been ripped out from under her. Tyler's cold, almost smug tone as he dismissed her concerns and casually mentioned Nicole, the woman he had been seeing, made her world spin. The apartment they had built together, the place she had come to love and cherish, was no longer theirs. Yet, instead of collapsing under the weight of his betrayal, Amelia found a quiet strength inside herself. The key to her survival and strength lay in her quiet, strategic action months before. Amelia had transferred the apartment deed into her name alone when they refinanced, a decision Tyler had never questioned or even noticed. He had always been dismissive of her concerns, assuming she would always follow his lead, but it was his own carelessness that would now undo him. While Tyler believed he had outsmarted her by selling their home, he had unknowingly set himself up for legal repercussions. Amelia didn't panic. She immediately called Chloe, her lawyer and trusted friend, to guide her through the next steps. Chloe quickly confirmed that the sale was invalid, and if Tyler had taken any money from the buyer, he could be charged with fraud. Amelia knew this was her opportunity not only to reclaim her apartment but also to reclaim her power. The fight was no longer just about the property, it was about taking back control of her life, her dignity, and her future. Over the next few days, Tyler's arrogance began to falter. His desperate attempts to manipulate her with threats and apologies were met with Amelia's calm, unwavering resolve. When he arrived with Nicole, Expecting to stay in the apartment, Amelia stood her ground. She calmly informed them both that the apartment was hers and that the sale was void. The confrontation was a moment of victory for Amelia, not just because she had won the apartment back, but because she had finally stopped letting Tyler dictate her life. As the legal proceedings continued, Amelia worked with Chloe to ensure that Tyler had no chance to turn the situation in his favor. Despite his desperate pleas, Amelia remained steadfast, knowing that her future was hers to build now. The apartment, once a symbol of the life they had shared, was now a reflection of her newfound independence. She rearranged it, filling the space with her own personality, and slowly but surely, it became a home again, this time, entirely on her terms. In the end, the divorce wasn't just about ending a marriage, it was about beginning a new chapter of self-discovery and freedom. Amelia had faced her greatest fear, the betrayal of someone she loved, and emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to live life on her own terms. The quiet strength she found within herself was her greatest victory. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. Amelia's journey through betrayal, heartbreak, and personal growth is a testament to the power of self-reliance and strength in the face of adversity. When she received the chilling phone call from Tyler, her husband of 6 years, telling her he was divorcing her and had already sold their apartment, it felt like the ground beneath her had cracked open. His smug and indifferent tone as he mentioned his new partner, Nicole, was the final straw in a marriage already plagued by distance and deception. Despite the emotional devastation, Amelia's response was not one of despair but of quiet determination. She didn't immediately fall apart. Instead, she thought strategically, remembering an important decision she had made months earlier that would ultimately change the course of her life. Months before Tyler's betrayal, Amelia had taken the initiative to transfer the deed of their apartment solely into her name during a refinancing process. Tyler, never one to pay attention to such details, had signed the papers without question, assuming it was a mere technicality for a lower interest rate. This seemingly small action, one that Tyler never even considered significant, became the key to Amelia reclaiming her life. When Tyler thought he could sell the apartment and leave her with nothing, Amelia found herself in control. Her first move was to call Chloe, her lawyer and longtime friend, who quickly confirmed that the sale was illegal and that Tyler could be charged with fraud if he had taken any money from the buyer. Amelia's heart didn't race with anxiety, she felt a quiet sense of empowerment. She had been through enough manipulation and emotional turmoil to know that this fight would be her turning point. Tyler's smugness would be his undoing. The next few days unfolded in a series of legal maneuvers and personal confrontations. Amelia remained calm and collected as she navigated the situation with Chloe's help. Tyler's frantic calls, his pleading for reconciliation, and his threats had no effect on her. Amelia's decision to fight wasn't driven by anger but by the clarity of knowing that she deserved more than a life dictated by Tyler's selfishness and arrogance. When Tyler, accompanied by Nicole, showed up at the apartment, expecting to settle in as if nothing had happened, Amelia stood her ground. She didn't flinch or back down. Calmly, she told them both that the apartment was hers, the sale was void, and Tyler had no right to claim anything. The confrontation was more than just a moment of legal victory, it was a pivotal moment of reclaiming her voice and space. In the weeks that followed, Amelia's life began to shift. The apartment, once a symbol of the life she had shared with Tyler, became a place of personal liberation. She rearranged the furniture, filled the space with her own touches, and started to see the apartment not as a relic of the past but as a foundation for her future. Each change, no matter how small, was a declaration of independence. The divorce proceedings moved smoothly, and Tyler, despite his attempts to manipulate Amelia's journey, wasn't just about reclaiming an apartment, it was about reclaiming herself. She had faced Tyler's betrayal with a quiet strength that spoke volumes, and in the end, she didn't just survive, she thrived. The apartment, now a reflection of her newfound freedom, was only the beginning of the new chapter she was writing for herself. Amelia's story is a powerful example of how one woman's quiet strength and decisive actions can transform her life, even in the face of betrayal and heartbreak. Her journey begins with a phone call from her husband Tyler, who, in a cold and almost smug tone, announces that he is divorcing her and has already sold their apartment. For a moment, the world seems to shatter as she processes his words. Tyler's betrayal, however, is not just emotional, he also attempts to rob Amelia of her home, the place they had built together. But Amelia's response is unexpected. She doesn't fall apart, despite the overwhelming sense of loss. Instead, she finds the courage to stand up for herself, drawing on a decision she had made months before. In an act of foresight and independence, Amelia had transferred the apartment deed into her name alone during a refinancing process earlier that year. Tyler had agreed to it without question, not paying attention to the fine details. Little did he know, this decision would come to her rescue. When he thought he could sell their home and walk away with the money, Amelia realized that the apartment was legally hers, and his actions were not just a betrayal, they were illegal. She quickly contacted Chloe, her lawyer and trusted friend, who confirmed that Tyler's sale of the apartment was void, and if he had taken money from the buyer, he could be charged with fraud. This revelation didn't cause panic or fear in Amelia. Instead, it gave her a sense of calm, knowing she had the upper hand. The ensuing days saw Amelia navigating a legal battle with a clarity and focus that Tyler never expected. While he continued to try to manipulate the situation with his attempts to guilt her into reconciling, Amelia remained composed and determined. She didn't seek revenge, but she wasn't about to let Tyler's arrogance go unpunished. When Tyler arrived at the apartment with Nicole, expecting to claim what he thought was his, Amelia firmly asserted that the apartment was hers and that his actions had no legal standing. As the divorce proceedings moved forward, Tyler's position became increasingly weak. Amelia, on the other hand, began to rebuild her life piece by piece. The apartment, once a symbol of their shared life, now became a symbol of her independence. She rearranged the space, added her personal touches, and slowly turned it into a home that reflected her own tastes and personality, not the life Tyler had tried to impose on her. By the time the divorce was finalized, Amelia had not only reclaimed her apartment but her sense of self. The legal victory, the closure of their marriage, and the rediscovery of her own strength transformed her into a woman who was no longer defined by Tyler's actions. She had taken control of her life, proving that even in the face of betrayal, it's possible to come out stronger, more confident, and ready to embrace the future on her own terms. The end of her marriage marked not just the end of a chapter, but the beginning of a new, more empowered one.